So let's talk about adding in your first employee. This is again the most manual process that we have, as if we've already hired the employee. Maybe we have all of their applicant paperwork on paper, and we're just going to manually key this employee into the software. Very similar to our patient or client account, we just simply go to the agent screen and click on the plus button. It brings up a very similar page. We put in the employee's name, official job title, the job title that's within the software that links into our payroll account, um, address information, phone number information, their email address, and whether you want to give them access into the software. If they've not been hired yet, if there's not a hire date put into the software, then we're going to consider this employee an applicant. Once you have a date of hire entered into the software, they will change automatically to be an employee. So for right now, since we don't have a date of hire, this shows our applicant access so that they can get into our applicant portal. When they become an employee, it would give you employee access, and from there you also control which security group you want that employee to be in. So you're able to control with security groups exactly what parts of the software this employee is able to access. Um, so that's a separate security training, but just know that's where this is the field that allocates that security for the employee. Date of birth, race, language, net promoter score information, and the reason for that employee's satisfaction or dissatisfaction with your company. Under advanced, you have the ability to track the employee's nickname or any previous names that they've utilized, their default county of service, the default office that they work for. You are allowed to have employees work for multiple facilities within your company, but if there's ever a question as to how we should allocate payroll expenses, that would fall back to this default office. You're able to allocate what territories this employee likes to work at for that particular office. This is taken into account when we do our search algorithm. So if you're looking to fill a shift for a patient that is in the Northeast Territory, this particular employee would show up in your algorithm, but they're going to be ranked a little bit lower than somebody who has the Northeast Territory as their first option in this list. So this just gives you a little bit more control over how we rank employees or how we fill empty shifts based upon where that employee is located, what their pay rate is, and what their preference is for territories. If you contract this employee from another facility, maybe you outsource your therapy services, you could link them to that outsourced company. And then, of course, you'd also control your employee code. The recruiting tab lets you keep track of the date you received the employee's application, their current application status, what recruiter they're assigned to, how they were referred to your agency, and then you also get a map of any patient accounts or open shifts or open cases that are near the patient's home, and then additional advanced capabilities, like if this employee was referred by a current employee and you want to pay them a referral bonus, you have that option. If they were recruited based upon a particular recruiting campaign, or how many hours of work this employee desires per week. We'll delve further into the recruiting section when we talk about our applicant tracking system, but just know there's some of the default fields are on the agent screen. On the contacts tab is where you would set up the employee's supervisor, and if they're on any type of internal team, you could set that up as well. Any of their contacts or relationships, as well as any agent identifiers. So just to briefly hit on this, We can delve into it more under the payer training or the billing training, but just know that you do have the capability of allocating identification numbers to an employee on a per payer basis. So if you need to bill Blue Cross using the employee's Blue Cross provider number, you have that capability right here on this contact screen. The Services tab gives you the capability of setting up the licensure for that particular employee, what case level they're able to service, whether they smoke, the maximum number of hours they want to work per day, per week, per month, any scheduling preferences that they may have. This is where you can set up that they only work with females, only work with children, don't work in a smoking environment, etc. And their preferred schedule, whether they always want to be off on Mondays, or if they're willing to work the first shift and second shift on Tuesdays. Again, this helps us when we're trying to automate the scheduling process for you. Any type of notes you want to give to the scheduler when they try to select this particular employee, and whether we require all of the employees' visits to go to care validation. So earlier you were able to set up under the service level whether those services require care validation. This allows you to set all of an employee's visits to go into care validation, typically used for new hires. So if we want to send all of our new hires documentation to be reviewed before it can be included on a bill or a claim, we could just go in and turn this setting on, and then regardless of the payer or service setting, all of this clinician's documents will automatically go into care validation. And then on the financial tab is where we control this employee's pay rate information. So first of all, we set up their status, whether they're an active employee, whether they are inactive. If they are inactive, then we would set a secondary status. If they are terminated, we would set up a secondary status of whether they're eligible for rehire or if they resigned and what their termination date is. And if they're still an applicant, then we're able to control what type of work they're looking for, full-time, part-time, contract, etc. And like I said, once you give this employee a hire date, they will automatically become an active employee rather than an applicant. Payroll allows you to set up the payroll ID that goes into your payroll system, which payroll period that employee is going to be paid under, which office their expenses are associated with, which payroll department they are in. If they have their own NPI number or taxonomy codes, you can include that here. And then other tax information, filing status, withholding allowance, whether you want to include them in payroll, whether they can get overtime, what their overtime threshold is, whether that's by default, that's going to default to 40 hours a week. Some states do have an overtime threshold per day, so you're actually able to set that up as well. Tracking their PTO balance, their Social Security number, or EIN number. And then you also have the capability of flagging this account to require additional security clearance. For instance, when we set up our security groups, you would want to give your HR department access to your employee profiles. You would want to give your payroll department access to your employees' financial information. But you may not want to give them access to your administrator salary or your CEO salary. You may want to limit that to the payroll director or payroll manager. In that case, you could actually set this financial data up to require even higher security permissions, so that your payroll department can view everyone's payroll information and financial information except for the ones that require high security clearance. So just an added security option available to you. And probably the most important part would be adding in their actual pay rates. And we'll It's fairly straightforward information here. We delve further into this when we get into the payroll training. I just wanted you to be aware of where that is allocated, as well as any deductions such as child support or insurance deductions that would come off of their paycheck. Okay. Once again, once you've saved that employee, they will automatically get allocated into your employee menu and list. You can search for those by agent, name, by office, or by even additional information. While we're on this topic, just know that you can automatically download a Nurses e-file spreadsheet so that you can upload that into the Nurses alert system for tracking OIG compliance, licensure compliance. For those of you in the state of Texas, you can download the DADS e-file option so you can upload that into the nurse aid registry check. Your employees are listed out here on this menu. Any of those that are in applicant status will have a little icon letting you know that, along with their NPS, Net Promoter Score indicator. Simply click on their name to go into their account.